Get out your Sam Presti decoder rings. It's another Thunder Thursday on News OK Live. I'm Mike Sherman, sports editor of the Oklahoman, here with a portion of our Thunder coverage team. From Stillwater, Oklahoma, in the press box of Boone Pickens Stadium is columnist Barry Tramel. And joining us from his home in downtown Oklahoma City are Thunder beat writer Anthony Slater, Jenny Carlson, Darnell Mayberry are wanted otherwise and other places. We're here to talk about Sam Presti's season opening press conference. But first, I want to remind you that Thunder Thursdays are brought to you by our good friends at Wheeler Chevrolet. Take that drive down I-40, save yourself time and money. Anthony, we heard from Sam Presti today. If we're playing Write Your Own headline, what's your takeaway and your headline on what Sam talked about?
Sam Presti is confident that he'll get the Reggie Jackson thing done at some point. And he doesn't think he's not panicking. I mean, that's obviously too long of a headline.
Too long.
Sam Presti is not considering trading Reggie Jackson this offseason or before the season. He just seemed confident and, talking about even if it doesn't get done, we think we can work it out next year. He's a core member. It seemed to me, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, because I wasn't as involved with the Harden thing when that was going down. Although these seem like similar situations, they seem to be coming in a more confident state that they can get something done than they were in the Harden deal. Am I wrong in that thought?
I don't think you are, and I don't recall Sam Presti ever saying, we want to invest in James Harden. Do you, Barry?
No, I think on a personal level, they prefer Reggie Jackson to James Harden. That seems clear. I think the headline was settle down. I think Sammy was trying to tell us, hey, don't be so pessimistic. This is the sort of the way we thought it would go. Remember, he told us back in early June, he said, you know what? Be surprising if we get anything done by October 31st. That's hard to do. So it's not overly surprising, and he stayed on the same course. The only difference is, and AC's talked and written about this, is the signings over the summer, including Eric Bledsoe just this week, seems to drive the market price up for Reggie Jackson. So, we'll see if something does happen by Halloween, but it's not likely to.
I like how you called him Sammy. That's the first time you've kind of adopted the Greg Popovich approach to Presti.
Well, Barry and Greg Popovich are longtime friends, so
I like Greggy. I promise you that.
Okay, how about let's talk about Harden though, which is very interesting.
Harden or Jackson?
Well, Harden. Let's talk about him because the Thunder's aversion to even speaking of the bearded one. Yet it seems Sam can't help himself in making references. Did you notice the veiled reference to Harden when he said, obviously we have a lot of experience in this realm? He was talking about Harden.
Yeah.
The situations are very different, Barry. You've outlined some of the differences. What do you think are the biggest differences, Anthony?
I think the first thing is, look, he's not going to get as much money on the open market. He's not a max player. He is going to get more money than we probably thought he was just because of what's been going on this offseason. But he's not a max guy that teams other teams would consider giving that money, which also means they're not willing to give up as much in the trade where, maybe you would trade Reggie Jackson if you could get the haul that you did with the Harden deal as far as, but you got 2 first-round picks, 2, turned out to be 12th overall picks, and, Kevin Martin for a year. Jackson's not going to bring that, so I think that just even takes that thought process away. And then, as you guys mentioned, the personal thing, I just think they think Reggie Jackson, even though publicly he's been more open than Harden ever was about, wanting shots, wanting more opportunities, I think they think from a personal standpoint he can take that role a little bit better.
Barry, I was surprised the reference to a skill set that Reggie Jackson has yet to display. That was something that surprised me. He talked about his passing.
It was a very interesting dialogue there with talking about the passing. Said he saw it at Boston College, and he really hadn't developed it a ton, but he thinks he will. And, that would make Jackson even more of an accomplished point guard. He's got a little bit of the Westbrook situation going on where people wonder if he's a true point guard. But Yeah, that's just another sign of how much the Thunder loves to talk about Reggie Jackson, and particularly Presti. I mean, Presti just loves the guy.
And particularly, there wasn't that kind of conversation or dialogue or anything about James Harden. In fact, at this stage of the negotiations with James Harden, he was coming off of the NBA Finals against the Heat. He was coming off of the White Yacht Party, and he had disappeared from their conversation about the hardest working core member. Barry, do you ever remember James Harden being referred to in any way, shape, or form like they talk about Reggie?
No, and let's not get the wrong idea. They never said anything bad about James. They spoke highly of James, but they didn't seem to speak. And when we say they, we're really talking about Presti. They never spoke to the degree that they speak about Jackson in terms of our DNA, work ethic, part of our foundation, those kinds of catchwords and catchphrases that go so deep into what Presti likes to talk about with this organization. It's clear that they sort of value Reggie Jackson's being around, even in addition to the basketball player that he is. The Thunder thought James Harden was a phenomenal basketball player. It's not so clear that they were, valued much beyond that.
Guys, there was no mystery or lack of clarity about what the Thunder intends to do with Reggie Jackson as soon as it can, going into the offseason if possible. But there was a lack of clarity about the starting lineup. That's where the decoder ring comes through. Barry, what did Sam Presti say about the starting lineup? Most definitely on the center and two guard position. And what did you take away from it?
Well, to me, it was pretty clear that Andre Roberson is the front runner to start at the two guard. I think Sammy brought out the term defensive disposition 8 or 9 times today, and that's sort of laying the groundwork for a bricklayer like Andre Roberson to start. Now, I don't think he also talked about the dynamic bench and keeping the workflow, the efficiency flow going even when the starters have to rest. So that means a Reggie Jackson and a Jeremy Lamb and Anthony Morrow on the bench. If you're starting wing players, if you're 3 wing players off the bench are Reggie Jackson, Jeremy Lamb, and Anthony Morrow, you're going to score a bunch of bench points. So I'm thinking Roberson in the starting lineup. I'm not as convinced. Some people thought that was code word for also that Perkins would start again. I'm not as convinced about that because, one, I think Adams is by the end of the year was a pretty effective defender. Yeah. He can be even better. And 2, I think if you start a Robertson, he's way below Thabo Sefolosha as an offensive player. I think you might need to have a more effective offensive center in the game with Andre Robertson. So I'm not as sold on Perk starting as I am Robertson starting.
Maybe so, Anthony, but the word disposition, isn't that Kendrick Perkins' middle name? And you put defensive disposition? That's who I thought of. I thought Kendrick Perkins, even more so than I thought Andre Roberson.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. But, I mean, the difference in the two guard that we're talking about, if we were talking about Lamb potentially starting and Adams is Lamb is a bad defender, as we've seen, and he doesn't have what you call a disposition. Perk has it, but, I mean, Steven Adams is developing it, and maybe that's because of, learning from Perk. But like Barry mentioned, I mean, Steven Adams has a chance to be a very good defender in the league, and I think they know that. And, I think there may be a chance, especially now Perk's out with an injury, that might open up some opportunity for Adams early in camp. If he shows that he can play like he did in the playoffs, I mean, he may force his way into the starting lineup, and that's not even really an indictment on Perk. It's just how good they think Adams can be, and he can have that defensive disposition.
Let me remind you that it's not a question of Steven Adams' defensive capabilities or athletic gifts or whatever. Can he play defense long enough without fouling? That was the big issue, and that's what we didn't see last year. I guess that's yet to come. That puts you in a bind when you're substituting before the rotation time in the first quarter because your center's got 2 fouls. Perk gets it sometimes, but Adams seemed very prone to that. Guys, going back to the defensive disposition, did you hear anything? Did it sound like, was there some other hint that it's not going to be Reggie Jackson?
Explain again.
Well, I mean, I heard some clues.
What?
I heard some clues that Reggie Jackson is not likely to start because he said about the distribution.
Right, and the dynamic bench and all those things. And Sam at one point was asked, "Hey, what about Reggie wanting to start?" And Sam said, "Hey, I'd be disappointed if he didn't want to start. Everybody wants to start." But he said, "But the thing about our team is once the games start, once training camp's here, we're all about what's best for the team. And it's clear that the best thing for this team is Reggie Jackson off the bench. I don't think that's even debatable."
Yeah, if I was handicapping it at this point, I'd go, I think Robertson probably will start. I think I'd probably put Lamb second. I might even put Anthony Morrow as a more likely starter than Jackson. I think they're really settled on having him as the sixth man, and I don't think any contract negotiation type stuff would change that.
Okay, let's go into another topic, and this one came at the end of the press conference. Anthony, what was going on when Sam Presti talked about Royal Ivey starting his coaching career with the D-League team?
I think what really happened is I think he'd just been talking for 35 minutes, and it kind of like, he caught his voice up a little bit. And then I think he kind of used it to joke like, he got choked up a little bit because he happened to be talking about Royal Ivey, who we all know he adores. And I think it was a joke, but I think some people took it. I mean, at least from my perspective, I thought it was a joke. It seemed like other people really thought he was kind of tearing up, choking up a little bit.
Barry, the word, it reminded me of the Saturday Night Live skit with Barbara Richmond. It was Michael Myers in drag, and he said, "Excuse me, I'm getting a little verklempt." I thought Sam Presti was definitely verklempt.
Well, I don't know what's going on with this Richmond character or Michael Myers, but I definitely think that Sam Presti sort of got a little choked up, caught himself. I think he always, when he talks about people in particular, when he told us the St. Ives story, remember 2 or 3 years ago, when he literally got choked up telling us about the equipment manager who decided to make the move to Oklahoma City with the franchise. So I think that kind of thing is important to Presti. And when somebody like Royal Ivey, who's been all over the league, wants to start his career, his post-playing career with the Thunder, I think it touches Sam and his spirit. So I think he was very emotional about that.
I don't think he was running out of gas, Anthony. However, I also think there's another dimension to this Royal Ivey thing, which is there's a lot of concern. What's going to happen to Kevin Durant? He loves Kevin Ollie, and there was fear that maybe Ollie would leave UConn and go to the Lakers. Didn't happen. There's fear that, the Knicks will be in prime position to get Kevin Durant to go play in New York because of Derek Fisher, because he loves Derek Fisher. But I'd like us to check out what Durant's connections are to Royal Ivey, going all the way back to his Texas days. I wonder whether he was part of the recruitment of Kevin Durant to Austin.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I would assume probably at some level. I know once they became teammates, they kind of used that Texas connection because, we know how much Durant loves his Longhorns and represents them if they're in the tournament or they're, playing a football game. So that connection helped him. Royal Ivey, we've all talked to him. I mean, he's a super likable guy. He clearly, gained the respect of everyone in that locker room. Durant's a really friendly guy, so they seem to mesh. I don't think it was a 2016 type play from the Thunder, but it's kind of funny to use it because of, everyone uses, hey, Fisher's there, so he must be going there. The high school coach is in Washington, so he must be going there. We can kind of use it and say, well, Ivey's here, so that means Durant's staying. I don't think that's what the Thunder are thinking, and I don't necessarily think that is going to be a deciding factor come 2016. I just think they think Royal Ivey's got a future in coaching, and why not it be in Oklahoma City?
It's very Spurs-esque. Barry, along those same lines, veteran leadership, bench presence, all those things. There's a question came up about what the Thunder lost when Cephalosha, when Caron Butler, when Derek Fisher left the team. Sam Presti had a quick answer for that. What did you think of it?
I thought it was a good, solid answer because think about it. 4 years ago, the core of the team was 22, 23 years old, 21 years old. That's not the case anymore. The core of the team, Westbrook, Durant, even Ibaka, definitely Collison, these guys supply plenty of veteran leadership. And then you factor in somebody like Morrow, who's been around, Perkins, been around forever. They got plenty of veteran. The veteran leadership is not going to be in short supply. They're going to have plenty of that, and it's just going to come from guys who are, in their prime and that we've always thought of as young players, but in fact are now sort of in the middle of their career.
Guys, another thing that came up during the thing was a direct question about Mitch McGary. I thought it was interesting as Sam Presti talked about how different his skills are, and really sort of focused on whether he can play follow the leader with Nick Collison. Anthony, anything about McGary that made you think that he might be part of the rotation?
Yeah, but it didn't really come from Presti's press conference. It came from the Summer League, which I think is what Presti was referring to. I mean, he was out there running the break, dishing, no-lookers to Jeremy Lamb on the break, dribbling it up the court. Not things we'll see him do a ton of with the Thunder, or really at all. He won't be bringing it up on the break. But the fact that he seems like an adept-type passer, Nick Collison type, backdoors, stuff like that. But it's still wait and see with him because, if you remember, he was good his freshman year. Late in the year, we got that kind of burst of McGary, but he didn't really play much last year. We've only seen him in Summer League. It's so early to start, theorizing if he can get in the rotation or not. It's going to be a kind of a learning process with him. But it's going to be something to watch for sure.
Barry, on which side of Reno Avenue will Mitch McGary play more basketball this coming season?
South. I don't know if he'll play all that much. He might play. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know how many games he'll miss of the Thunder. I bet he's, when they're across the street, he can play 140 games this year maybe. So I think he's going to spend a ton of the time with the Thunder. I think there's a chance he gets in the rotation if it is expanded to, 10 guys or so. And on occasion, Scotty uses 11. So if he goes that deep, I think McGary will play quite a bit.
None of the press corps asked one question about the clock and the Kevin Durant countdown. It's been talked about all summer, all over the country, all over the world, what's going to happen to Kevin Durant, all kinds of speculation, especially in Washington. Was the local press corps sort of derelict, or the national press corps, which is there too? Anthony, were we derelict in not asking a question about Durant and free agency?
He answers questions. I don't know that much would have come out of it. Maybe we should have thrown one out there, but there was a lot of Reggie Jackson talk. He can take some runs. I don't know that it would have produced much, is how I'd probably respond to it.
I would agree, but I thought of it. It came into my mind, but I don't think Sam would have addressed the issue. And two, the one thing we get accused of sometimes is fanning those flames ourselves, which is if we'd shut up about it, we being the media in general, it might not be such a hot button issue. I disagree with that, but I thought, let's just give those people the day and let's not bring up the unpleasant subject of Kevin Durant's future.
One of the things about Durant that was brought up, however, was his minutes. What did you take from what Presti talked about that? He talked about Scott Brooks developing the bench. He talked in sort of passing about advances in medical science and all kinds of things that keeping track of player performance, but he didn't straight up say that Kevin Durant's going to have to play less, Anthony.
Well, the thing with Presti, when people ask him rotation questions, like somebody was asking him, who do you think is going to start at the 2? Who do you think is going to start at the 5? And he answered those questions a lot of times saying, that's not my decision, that's Scott Brooks' decision. And it sounds like he's deflecting it, but I really think that, Scott Brooks does make those decisions. And I think Scott Brooks will make the decisions as far as to limit minutes. That's something Presti might be involved in as far as, hey, Scott, look at this, chart of numbers and like you mentioned, the medical history of it all. But I don't think that's going to be Presti's decision. I think that's going to be more Brooks feeling out games and stuff like that. And then maybe later in the year, if there's injury concerns like there was with Westbrook last year, they sit down as a team and figure it out.
Barry, any hand tipping on Durant and his minutes?
I don't think there was any hand tipping. I do think it's only common sense, though. And that if they played Durant as much as they did last year, they're nuts. So I believe that's got to be part of the discussion with a general manager and his coach. I mean, he's got to say, listen, we got to cut down on this. This guy's his future is not limitless. I mean, he's got there's no reason for him to go 41 minutes a game, 39 minutes a game. Let him have some nights where he's going 31, 34.
Well, a couple quotes from Presti that along those lines. One is he referred to a longer All-Star break, which I guess I got to take a look at. Anthony, how much longer is it?
Every team gets at least 7 or 8 days now. I think
it's a full week break. That's right.
Yeah, every team, if you play the Thursday before, you won't at least play the Thursday. The thing is, the Thunder got a week break last year. If you remember, they went Thursday to Thursday, and I think they're doing basically the same this year. So it's just making sure every team gets as long a break as the Thunder got last year.
It's a way to placate the All-Stars. Everybody got a good break except the All-Stars.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of the All-Stars, LeBron and those guys, they played on a Tuesday in some cases after being at the All-Star site Friday morning. Yeah. So they really got no break at all.
It's even, and sometimes, we talk about they had to play an All-Star game. All-Star weekend's a lot more taxing to those All-Stars, especially guys like LeBron and Durant, than even if they had just played one game within a regular road trip, because they got to do all these community events, all this and that, all these appearances, dance-off, slam dunk contests. So I think it is good. It's going to make sure that the All-Stars get days after the All-Star game.
Guys, for a lot of people who were sort of decrying the Thunder offense, there was a little bit there. For one thing, sort of along the minutes that Kevin Durant plays, Presti said, "We have a group and a team with the depth to sustain us through 82 games." Sounds like maybe a wider rotation. The other thing he did say was that Jeremy Lamb set some sort of record for time in the gym. Do you think Lamb becomes will be a part of sort of a better and more diversified offense?
I thought he was last year until they brought in Caron Butler. I think Lamb was playing pretty good until they brought in Butler, and that was the end of Jeremy Lamb. It turned out to be basically a bad move, because Butler, while having some good moments in the regular season, didn't do much in the playoffs, didn't even end up playing there down the stretch. So I got to say, I think Lamb will be a big part of this rotation, and I think his progress was impeded a little bit by the roadblock of Caron Butler that they threw up last year.
Yeah, I think I agree with Barry. I think he's going to be a big part of the rotation. If you forget, but he averaged double digits up until the All-Star break last year. Then he just hit a shooting slump. But I am also wary of those quotes, like you mentioned from Presti about he holds a record of time in the gym. Those are the type of quotes that always come out this time of year. This guy's in the best shape of his life. This guy's gained 15 pounds of muscle. It's just kind of a preseason quote that doesn't really do much to me until Jeremy Lamb's hitting shots on the court. Then we'll see.
A couple more questions, guys. One, what the heck did Sam Presti mean when he said we're going to benchmark our way to the middle? Any clue?
No, he got all.
Didn't he say? I thought he said they didn't want to benchmark.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, they didn't want to benchmark their way to the middle. I was trying to figure out what he was talking about.
Well, I think what he means is let's not fall back. The worst place you can be in Presti's mind's in the middle of the pack, because you're not really building for the future and you're not getting anywhere now. So I think it was just a generic, what I've called over the years the Milwaukee treadmill. The Bucks got so bad last year that it didn't even apply. But to just try to stay high and not fall back into that big morass in the middle of the NBA.
Yeah.
Anthony, I think he was talking about some question that somebody asked about production performance, and I think he was trying to say we're going to plow our own way here.
He's got all his little catchphrases. He was saying something about of the bias to action today.
Yeah.
He's got some crazy, we all know how intelligent he is. So sometimes you know what he's saying, sometimes it's kind of something in his mind.
Finally, Sam also revealed sort of his affinity and how much he loves the players. And when he talked about Steven Adams and going to New Zealand and spending time there with Mark Bryant, and why do you think he went, Barry?
I think he's trying to build good relationships with all these guys. I think he's trying to create an environment like you see in San Antonio where core players stay forever. And, whether that's, Steven Adams or not, You know, I think he's trying to build a bond with these guys that would pay off both now and, you know, in the future. I mean, if you think about it, if you're New Zealand, well, heck, I mean, let's say I wasn't from Norman. Let's say I was from California. Say I grew up in California. If I went home on a vacation or something, and somebody from Opubco, you or upper management or somebody flew out there just to say hello and meet my family and friends, it'd be sort of impressive. So I assume Steven Adams feels the same way. Hey, look, this guy came 10,000 miles, ever how far, I don't know how far it is, ever how far it is. Flew 10,000 miles just to see where I grew up. So I think he's just trying to build bonds with the guys that he feels is important.
Anthony, do you think Phil Jackson spent any time watching The Wire with Carmelo Anthony?
That would be interesting. Potentially. I mean, along the lines that Barry said, I mean, I agree with everything. And then also, I wouldn't mind a free summer trip to New Zealand. I mean, that'd be a cool place to visit, cool scenery to see. You know, I'll go next year. You want to fund it? I mean, I'll go visit Steve-O and write a story about it.
I was hoping you could do some stuff over the phone. Skype, that kind of deal. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? Hey, guys, thanks for the information. That's all for this edition of Thunder Thursday on News OK Live, but you can stay with the best coverage team every day at News OK, every morning in the Oklahoma. And remember, Thunder Thursdays are brought to you by our good friends at Wheeler Chevrolet. Take your drive down I-40, save yourself some time and money. Anthony, Barry, enjoy the game.